A Tea Party lawmaker is in a little bit of trouble after he tried to create a sex scandal to smear himself in order to cover up the actual sex scandal he's involved in. Now, this is Michigan State Representative Todd Courser, and apparently he's been having an affair with another Tea Party lawmaker by the name of Cindy Gamra, okay? Now, he's like, oh my God, we can't have people know about this. I'm married, I have 4 kids. What can I do to like soften the blow in case this comes out?
Say that again. What can I do to soften the blow?
I know.
And then he comes up with this.
He comes up with the worst idea ever. He's thinking to himself, okay, what can I do to make this better? I got it. I'll get people to smear me by accusing me of having a sex scandal with a gay guy.
With a gay prostitute.
With the gay prostitutes.
Yeah,
so,
behind a nightclub.
Yes, it's amazing. Okay, so in audio recordings obtained by the Detroit News, State Representative Todd Courser repeatedly tells aides, I need a controlled burn before revelations that he had been having an affair with fellow Tea Party Representative Cindy Gamra. Gamrat, that's actually her name. So at this point, Courser instructed aide Ben Graham to send out an over-the-top story that's obscene about me in the hopes that it would inoculate the herd. He's referring to his base, people who voted for him. An apparent reference to Courser and Gamrat's followers in the Tea Party movement. Okay, so he wanted people or someone to call in or write in to all of his supporters and to Republicans in the area and let them know that this unidentified informant saw him behind a club having sex with a male prostitute. And then he's like, this will totally work because later on when the true scandal comes out, people will be like, oh, that's no big deal. At least it's a woman.
Yeah.
What the fuck is he thinking?
Or I thought maybe that his thought was that people would think, oh, they're just trying to smear him. The gay thing was not true. None of it's true.
Yeah.
I thought maybe that was it. Either way.
I think it's both. I think he's doing a double thing. He wants them to go, well, at least it's not a guy, and this and that, so it's not as bad as that. And then the other thing, too, and plus you can't trust anything because that wasn't true.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
He says it will make anything else that comes out after that isn't a video mundane, tame by comparison.
Exactly, yes.
So, but he didn't want there to be a video shot of him having sex with the gay prostitute behind the nightclub, right?
No.
That would be too much. Yeah, I got it. And of course, I love that this story, the Aaron Ross story, that according to the Detroit News, both Courser and Gamrat are social conservatives who use their Christian faith and invoke it in pursuit of new legislation. New legislation governing gun rights, because of course, obviously you want to talk about your Christian faith and guns.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's, of course, a family values guy, which is the only reason why we're covering this story. I mean, this is such terrible hypocrisy. I mean, look, if this was someone who didn't run with a platform of family values, then I would not report it. I would feel uncomfortable even knowing about the story. But it's important to know who your lawmakers are. So if he's saying that gay marriage is unnatural and that we should outlaw reproductive rights for women because of his Christian faith, well, you should know what's really going on behind the scenes. He is having an affair with a woman, which is, okay, I guess it's morally questionable, but his whole plan of smearing himself with a gay prostitute is just hilarious. So I want to give you a little sense of something he wrote back in the day for Huffington Post regarding same-sex marriage, okay? Just to show you how conservative this guy is. He says, right now, as it sits with the decision from our U.S. Supreme Court looming, our elected officials could be forced to perform same-sex marriages. If this happens, then the liberal left will use the Supreme Court decision as a hammer to advance their liberal agenda. If the Supreme Court surprises everyone and decides to uphold the institution of marriage, then I will simply have the option to then withdraw the bill. So he was basically proposing a bill that would make it possible for people to deny same-sex couples a wedding, right? So they wouldn't be forced to actually perform the wedding. He also says, it is incredibly important that if the Supreme Court rules against traditional marriage, that our elected officials are not forced to violate their conscience by being forced to perform gay marriages.
Yeah, because that's what everybody's worried about, is that elected officials might be forced to perform a gay marriage. That's right.
You know,
because everyone is forced to be an elected official. That's right. You don't have a choice.
And but this kind of happened to me one time. My wife suspected me of cheating. And she's like, hey, I have an email here. What's this going on? And I was like, whoa, I've got a picture of me sucking cock.
That'll lessen the blow.
Try to
right?
explain this.
Or
And
right, yeah.
I thought that was going to get me out of it. Didn't work.